The earthvox podcast. The earthvox podcast. earthvox podcast.
Oh my God, I almost forgot to plug my microphone in. Coming down to the very last moment. It's the worst day in the world today. Oh, no, actually not the world, just the United States. Because it's daylight savings time day, or however you would refer to it. I like to call it the worst day in the world, because why do we need this? Why aren't our politicians working on the things that really matter? No, instead it has to get dark at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Would you rather trade it being light earlier in the morning or more light later in the day? I wish for more light later in the day, even though it is really only an hour, because it's already getting dark in the 5 o'clock hour, which I find horribly depressing. But when most of us get up, isn't it already light out? I know some of us with industrial jobs getting up at 5 a.m. when it's still dark aren't really going to be affected by 1 extra hour of daylight in the morning. I used to work at a grocery warehouse where we worked 4 10s or sometimes 11s. And it would be dark in the morning when I got up to go to work, and then dark or almost dark in the evening when I left. So who are we really benefiting by rolling the clocks back an hour? I hate it. I will always hate it. And I will always yell about it. The Dodgers won the, what's it called? The World Series. Because who cares? I mean, it was thrilling for people that care about baseball, I assume. No disrespect intended. It's so boring. Oh, I enjoyed playing it in junior high and elementary school. I don't see how people can enjoy watching 181. Isn't that how many games are played? How many games are played in the MLB regular season? I think it's some 162. It might as well be 181. 162 games, and they go and play. I mean, what a great job. It's one of the few jobs I've heard it told where you don't actually have to be a peak performance type athlete. I'm sure some professional baseball players would argue against that presumption. But anyway, the Dodgers won. Hooray for Los Angeles, I guess. Not that they deserve any good things. The players themselves, who have worked so hard to reach the top of their game, to win the World Series, congratulations to them, and congratulations to the people who feel so closely associated to the organization that they can also celebrate the victory, feeling some kind of personal responsibility. I get it. I used to be a huge basketball fan when I lived in Portland. I was a fan of the Portland Trail Blazers. No longer. I don't live in Portland anymore. I am not in proximity to any kind of sports radio. And I have no interest, and I have no motivation to be interested. Of course, we'll talk about the scandal that's going on in the NBA. Thank you for joining the show. You can find me at earthvox on X. I would appreciate a follow. Drop me a DM. Let me know what you think. You may also leave me a voicemail at 701-787-1121. I would appreciate it. And we're streaming the video live on Rumble, X, Twitch, and YouTube. And you can find the audio version of this same show wherever you find finer podcasts. The most sensational news of the week is probably that the House Oversight Committee ruled Biden's auto pen presidency to be null and void. I don't know how they plan on proving this. The leading report writes on X, breaking: House Oversight Committee deems all President Biden's executive actions null and void, including pardons performed by White House staff and signed by an auto pen. That's pretty crazy. That's pretty hardcore. I don't know how exactly they intend to prove it. I think they're going to need a little bit more than that. Because what are they going to do? This article from CNN Light, it's Diet CNN. Former President Joe Biden experienced such quote, cognitive decline while in office that it remains a serious question as to whether he was aware of the substance of the various pardons and commutations signed in his name via auto pen. The GOP-controlled House Oversight Committee asserted in a letter it sent to Attorney General Pam Bondi, urging her to consider whether that clemency might be invalid and to take action for potential prosecution against some of Biden's aides. Yeah, they were getting paid off to get the old auto pen signature on legislation on pardons. This may be the avenue to actually proving that some of this was malicious or not approved. But what, I mean, are you going to go to Joe Biden and say, hey, were you cognitively capable when you signed these pardons, when you signed these executive orders? What's he gonna say? And what judge or jury in the land is gonna go, I believe him? I think this is more legitimate now, 10 years later, or however, because they're gonna drag it on so long in court. Anybody that stands to suffer any kind of punishment for these inappropriate things that happened while Joe Biden was in office. I mean, the auto pen presidency is what they call it. This is essentially the Trump DOJ against the deep state, with all of their lawyers and all of their judges and all of their billionaire funding to drag all of these proceedings out as long as possible until Joe Biden is dead. And I don't know, honestly, which one would be worse. Well, Joe Biden's dead, or we can't ask him, or Joe Biden is completely cognitively gone, so we can't believe anything that he says. I think dead is better. Because then there's no room for the polar opposite medias to twist their viewer bases into pretzels, arguing that no, Joe Biden, he's really more cognitive now. He's more cognitively capable now when he tells us that he did, or that he was coherent when he signed these pardons. And that's why we should overturn all of the pardons and all of the executive orders. While the left, of course, will say, no, he ain't. And they'd probably say it just like that. You know who those people are. So why are we wasting our time with it? What's going to happen? It's just going to be another circus of distraction while both sides lie about what actually happened. And speaking of lying, the number of Democrats lying to the American people is astounding. I mean, they have absolutely no moral integrity. I'm not saying that anybody on the right does, but this is dyed-in-the-wool deception. Absolutely mind-blowing when you talk about what is going on with this government shutdown and what the Democrats are telling the people that they follow them on social media. Adam Schiff writes on X, let's be clear. Donald Trump has the power to ensure 40 million people don't go hungry during the shutdown. That's false. Donald Trump does not have that power. But he wishes to inflict the maximum pain on those who can least afford it. Also false. Donald Trump does not have that power. He won't fund food, but he's happy to build a golden ballroom. The power does not lie with Donald Trump. The power lies with Congress. But he's happy to build a golden ballroom that is receiving independent funding from Donald Trump himself and from donors. Are there any Democrats telling a different story? John Fetterman, maybe? He's one of the few that votes with the Republicans to fund the government for 6 more weeks. Or however long they agreed upon. It's not long, because let's face it, both sides in federal government want to have this issue every freaking time it comes along. Oh no, we're going to shut the government down. We're going to shut the government down unless we get our way. This is what the Democrats are trying to do right now. It is, despite what you've heard. So it continues. And at this point, it's another Democrat tantrum. They want their outrageous spending. That's what this is about. The big, beautiful bill, remember? It was big, it was beautiful. Was passed, signed into law. It cut spending. It cut the spending that the Democrats want back. So the Democrats are keeping the government shut down because all they care about is power. We legislated to cut the $1.5 trillion that the Democrats want back in the budget. They're throwing a tantrum because we won't give it to them, because we already took it away. And they're saying you're going to give it back, and we don't care who we hurt because all we care about is power. Carolyn Levitt breaks it down here.
In the United States of America.
I'm asking you if you can explain the disconnect in the messaging.
I most certainly can. The Democrats' proposal,
So this reporter asked if you couldn't hear. She wants Carolyn Levitt to explain the disconnect in the messaging about the government shutdown.
continuing resolution. Let me just reiterate, the Republicans' continuing resolution was a clean continuing resolution. There was no
funding the government based on the legislation in the big, beautiful bill.
No partisan politics injected into it. There were no conservative wish lists injected to it. What the Republicans want and still want to this very second is a clean continuing resolution to fund the United States government. What did the Democrats want in their continuing resolution? They inserted a provision to undo a provision in the Working Families Tax Cut, the One Big Beautiful Bill, that ended taxpayer-funded health care illegal benefits for illegal aliens. Democrats' proposal would require Medicaid to pay more for emergency care provided to illegal aliens than Medicaid does for American patients who are disabled, elderly, or children. And this bill would have also allowed California to continue a gimmick that funds its Medicaid for illegals program. Those are things that we ended, the Trump administration ended, with the passage and the signage of the One Big Beautiful Bill. And it is an undisputed fact, a fact that under the Biden administration, illegal aliens were absolutely receiving taxpayer-funded health care benefits. In fact, in fiscal year 2024, Medicaid costs for emergency services for illegal immigrants skyrocketed by 142% from the previous year to $9.1 billion. That's $9.1 billion taxpayer dollars that were going to emergency services for illegals. Between President Trump's last full fiscal year under his first administration and Joe Biden's last full fiscal year, Medicaid spending on emergency services for illegal immigrants nearly tripled. There was an increase of 196% between 2020 and 2024. And I have a chart here for you, and I'm more than happy to email it to you. I'd also like to add, because some were asking dishonest questions yesterday about emergency rooms. In Southern California, according to healthcare professionals in 2023, under the Biden administration, Southern California's, quote, entire healthcare system was being bombarded with illegal immigrants and forcing American patients to endure longer wait times. In Denver, Colorado, the CEO of Denver Health stated that 8,000 illegal immigrants made 20,000 visits to the city's health system in 2023, leaving an uncompensated bill totaling over $10 million. So when an illegal alien goes to the emergency room, who's paying for it? The American taxpayer. The main safety net hospital in Denver had to turn away patients due to the massive influx of illegal immigrants into the community. And UC Health Hospitals in 2024 reported their system was under stress from an increasing number of migrants. As a result, according to the head of emergency departments and urgent cares across the hospital system, quote, access is impeded for everyone. These are healthcare.
Believe not what the Democrats and the leftist media would tell you about this. Oh, it's illegal for illegal immigrants to get health care. This money is not allotted for illegal immigrants to receive free health care. Liar. Anyone with two brain cells to rub together knows that when an illegal immigrant needs health care, they go to the emergency room. Then the hospital takes funds from Medicare or Medicaid or wherever it comes from to pay those delinquent emergency room bills from providing health care to illegal immigrants. So believe Carolyn Levitt or don't believe Carolyn Levitt. It's all part of the Cloward Piven plot to devastate the system. This is the evidence.
42 million people in this country that need food stamps on a weekly basis. And we're saying people deliberately instead of Americans, because most of the people that are on food stamps aren't even from this country. 45% of Afghanistan immigrants are on food stamps, 42% of Somali immigrants, 34% of every immigrant from Iraq, 23% of Haitians, 59% of all illegal aliens are collecting food stamps, meaning that most of the people getting food stamps from the U.S. government and the U.S. taxpayer are not even Americans. Think about that. And we didn't know about any of this before the government shutdown started, but thanks to Democrats, we can confirm tonight that millions of Joe Biden illegal aliens, people who crossed the border when Joe was president, are now collecting food stamps from a program funded by hardworking American taxpayers. There are 42 million people in this country that need food stamps on a weekly basis.
And over half of them, as he mentioned, I was copy pasting. I was doing clerical things. They're creating chaos to the welfare system. I don't know how you feel about it. The welfare system in general. But at this point, I feel like it shouldn't exist at all. And I'm sorry, it's cold. People are going to get hurt. It's a little bit sad. But we have to do it. This is why the massive ICE operations. They have to get people out of the country. They have to get them off welfare benefits. See, the NGOs have created all of these loopholes. They're complicit in the downfall of the country. That's dramatic, but that's what their goal is. That's what they're going for. That's why they facilitated the influx of illegal immigrants. They're facilitating the avenues that these immigrants will receive government benefits so that there's no benefits left for anybody. And the Democrats need this government shutdown to create maximum chaos. That's what they're doing. It's what they're after. If you want to believe it or not, it is the goal. It is the explanation for how we got to this point. Elections have been stolen. Marxist Democrats installed, well, Marxists masquerading as Democrats, to do things like keep the government shut down. Keep the government shut down so people don't get their food. I saw a hilarious meme earlier today. Broken up 50-50, two pictures. One picture said, no kings, no kings. Second picture said, where's my food, king? Come on, king, give me my food. So which is it? No kings, I'm independent, I can do it for myself? Or please, king, govern me harder. Give me free stuff. At this point, even labor unions, can you think of more leftist, an organization more leftists than labor unions? I mean, maybe the aforementioned NGOs. But this headline from Politico, Democrats face moment of truth as shutdown coalition frays. A major federal employee union broke ranks and forced some Democrats into a defensive crouch. This was, when was this? October 27th. 5 days ago? 6 days ago? No movement. No movement on the shutdown. We are still shut down. And I would be, at this point, it's frustrating. If I was getting tax vouchers for every day that the federal government was shut down, I'd be all for it. As it is, we're all getting ripped off. We're still paying the same amount in taxes while all of these things are shut down, while people aren't getting paid. Yet the money is still all going into the coffer. It's not coming back. We're being screwed over. If you want to blame Republicans, fine. Blame Democrats, even better. But we're all being screwed. Can't we unify underneath? Can we unify under the canopy of being completely screwed over by the government? Every waking moment, paying more in taxes than I do on my mortgage. And I'm not getting any food stamps. I'm not getting any Section 8. I'm not getting any welfare. But that's where all the money's going. All the money going to food stamps and SNAP and NGOs and USAID. So that the people actively working to destroy the country can win their elections handily. Bring in the voters that'll vote for them. Finance the campaigns that will reelect them. Pay the cartels for the voting machines that will hand them the election. So they can continue weakening our country, one blue city at a time. I saw the, you may have remembered or you may have seen it before, the Brian Callen video, where he talks about how America being the third violent city. I wonder if I can pull it up. Probably not. This never works on the fly. See if Brian Callen crime stats will bring it up. I don't know. I feel like Grok never really knows. Grok and or the X search never really knows what I'm talking about. I don't know why it's showing me. It's showing me Jack Posobiec and Tom Segura. Great job. X apparently doesn't know who Brian Callen is. Sorry, Brian Callen. Savage burn. But anyway, I can just sum up, because I haven't slept since I watched the video. It's pretty fresh in my memory. That America would go from the third most violent country in the world to the 189th out of 193 countries. If you just removed the crime statistics from the 5 most violent cities, which are all blue cities, which that also have heavily regulated gun control laws. It was St. Louis, Chicago, Detroit, Los Angeles, and maybe Baltimore, maybe DC. I don't remember. And I don't remember the remember the point that I was trying to make. Oh, yes. When the blue cities fall into chaos, I've outlined this before, I'll try to be brief. The blue cities fall into chaos. The sober-minded people move away because they are able and they don't have to put up with it. Then all that's left is the most socialist and the most dependent. So if you turn these blue cities into sanctuary cities and then bring in a bunch of communist refugees, quote unquote refugees from Venezuela, well, then you can install the most radical socialists in all of these cities. But then don't forget also what happens during elections. I know in my state, most of the statewide elections are dominated completely by the socialist blue cities in my state that make up, I mean, I don't know, they obviously make up a greater portion of the population than the state falls to socialism. Once the state has fallen to socialism, communism, authoritarianism, whichever you prefer, well, now you have what we have in Chicago with the ICE protests in Portland. People ramming into ICE vehicles and getting shot for it. Because the governor of the state, the mayor of the major cities say, we're not going to follow federal law. And what comes next? We have secession. Not interestingly, not very much in the news about the ICE protests. At least not as far as I'm aware. But one of the big things that was in the news this week was Donald Trump's trip through Asia. Oh, I forgot to find out what he went to this. It looks like Asian, but it's ASEAN and stands for the Association, I'm crushing it, of Southeast Asian Nations. And he did work. He got some trading done. Malaysia and Cambodia signed historic trade agreements, eliminating or reducing tariffs on U.S. exports, addressing non-tariff barriers, which basically just means they're being dicks for no reason, no legal reason, and expanding market access for American products. Japan secured $550 billion in Japanese investments into the U.S., including a gift of 250 cherry trees. Aww. In South Korea, we finalized a trade breakthrough, lowering U.S. tariffs on Korean imports from 25% to 15% in exchange for $350 billion in commitments. 200 billion, breaking down as 200 billion in cash payments, capped at 20 billion a year. 150 billion for U.S. shipbuilding investments with 50-50 profit splits. Plus, this is the cool part, construction of a nuclear-powered submarine in Philadelphia. South Korea's getting a nuke sub. Pretty cool. But the big one, of course, and I should actually switch over. Let's go over here. I got a brief description and a less brief description the key deals with China. Trump secured a major economic and trade agreement with China, including commitments to halt the flow of fentanyl precursors into the U.S., suspend export controls on rare earth elements and related materials such as gallium and germanium, while issuing general licenses for U.S. benefit, ending retaliatory actions against U.S. semiconductor firms, and opening markets to U.S. agriculture by suspending retaliatory tariffs and committing to purchase at least, and this is crazy, 12 million metric tons of U.S. soybeans later this year and 25 million annually from 2026 to 2028. Plus, resuming imports of sorghum and hardwood logs. In exchange, the U.S. lowered tariffs on certain Chinese imports by 10%, reducing the effective rate from 57% to 47% on affected goods. Extended Section 301 tariff exclusions until November 2026, and suspended some regulatory actions for, this is the unfortunate part, 1 year. China also pledged to ease access to critical minerals, resume broader U.S. agricultural imports, and increase purchases of U.S. oil and gas. This truce stabilizes U.S.-China trade relations, with further talks planned, including a potential Trump visit to China in April 2026, according to Grok. Now, you must know my opinion on China at this point, and it's something like, Donald Trump, don't trust China. China is asshole. It's where my faith in the CCP lands. China is asshole. And I'm actually really kind of optimistic about the 1 year trade deal, because that tells me that we're going to continue to work in separating ourselves from China, reducing our reliance on China and the CCP, who is not fair. They're gangsters, according to the people that do and have done a lot of business in China. But all in all, the trip to Asia for the Trump administration seems like a big success. Of course, it depends on the other half of these deals meeting their obligations. The only one I'm really concerned about is China, because the other countries are investing in the United States, which means bringing jobs back to the United States, which means decreasing the costs of items that have been heavily tariffed, because theoretically, these items will be manufactured in the United States and won't require any import tariffs. But it's still, what's the expression? A long road to hoe. And unfortunately, people are going to hurt. I found this article from Mediaite earlier in the week, and it really kind of, it could, of course, be propaganda because it's Mediaite, and unfortunately, we just can't trust really any media institution or artificial intelligence that does research work for me. But the headline is, Trump fan gutted by tariffs says he sees bankruptcies and suicides if trade war continues. And it really is all about soybeans. The article reads, farmer Caleb Ragland is a supporter of President Donald Trump, but he warned on News Nation on Friday that thousands of farms will go under if the president's trade war continues. Ragland is a soybean farmer in Kentucky, and he has been hit hard financially this year, mainly due to China being the biggest buyer of soybeans. Tariffs have halted the market. Not anymore. I wonder how Caleb is feeling today. I wonder how he's feeling about this massive 12.5 million tons. I wonder, I'm sure Grok can tell me. Be patient. This is going to be good info. How many tons of soybeans does the U.S. export every year on average? Be brief. You got to tell it to be brief, or it'll talk your ear off. And then you also got to tell it to give you a quick answer, or it'll go real in depth. 52 million metric tons of soybeans annually. And that's to everyone. So, and China has committed in November to buy over 20% of that, with just 2 months left in the year. That's pretty big. But it really pissed me off. I used to really like listening to. I won't bring up the name because I'm sure they have their reasons, and you're entitled to your beliefs and your political biases. But in the discussion of this deal that Trump made in China was so dismissive. It was so dismissive and really deceptive. I was disappointed because I chose to listen to this particular podcast continually because of its. I mean, it was a foreign affairs podcast, foreign geopolitics type of genre, and fairly unbiased politically, like maybe a little bit concerned. I mean, really center left, center right on most, never really extreme one way or the other, which is why I was so disappointed when I listened yesterday to their analysis of this Asian trade deal. They brought up the 100% tariff because remember, we covered on this show a couple of weeks ago, or maybe last week, China rolled out these wild export controls, basically saying we're going to decide who gets these rare earth minerals that are critical for everyone's technology, manufacturing, and advancements in AI and electric cars, etc. So Donald Trump says, okay, if you're going to do that, 100% tariff on top of, that would have brought tariffs on some Chinese goods to over 150%, which would crush the Chinese economy. But no mention of that. No mention of the huge deal on soybeans that has been really hurting American farmers. Instead, it was about China being in charge, China being the bully, China dictating to Donald Trump what was going to happen. Okay, maybe they did in certain terms, but it sounds like Donald Trump got us exactly what we need from China in the short term, which has me hoping that long term we will be reducing our reliance on China and Chinese goods. I'm sorry, that means more pain. But the relationship that China has with the rest of the world, at least the relationship that is developing, is very mafia-esque. You're going to do what we want, or we're going to break your kneecaps. You're going to give us what we want, or we're going to burn your store down. How can we take any other position that isn't comparable to exactly what China is doing to us? Oh, you think you're going to hurt us? Well, we're going to hurt you harder. That's what you voted for when you voted for Donald Trump. And if it's not, then, I don't know where you were getting your information. There was a little bit of outrage earlier in the week on the same topic as this article when it came to beef ranchers and the trade deal that Trump made with Argentina, which I feel was twisted to create a negative public opinion of our relationship with Argentina. As if there aren't enough mouths to feed. We can only buy. The reason that this is happening is because of government subsidy. The same reason that people are freaking out about their SNAP benefits. We've created all of these handouts that people are now dependent on. Instead of creating systems to allow and encourage people to be reliant on the sweat of their own brow. I heard it best described in this way. Another story imparted to me by my stepdad, Bill Sizemore. He said, if you sent a random individual that you had, a friend of yours, if you sent them a check for $100 every week, they would be grateful. They would question, they would try to refuse. No, I don't need this $100 check every month or every week. Let's say every week. It's better for the story. He said, but after weeks and weeks of sending this $100 check, you suddenly stop. What would the reaction be from your friend that initially didn't want the handout? Well, this friend has now suddenly become reliant on the handout. And when before you were this great, benevolent, generous person for sending them this money, now you're the bad guy for holding it back. And how do we fix this mentality in this country? And I thought earlier today, or earlier this week, that it would be a good idea, while we're taking in all of this tariff revenue, to maybe slice off a little piece for the ranchers and farmers that are getting devastated the most by these tariffs. Because why shouldn't we do that? Or maybe we need to completely rethink how we're farming and ranching to be more sustainable, not from an environmental standpoint, but from an economic standpoint. Because we've become reliant. We've allowed these countries to force us into relying on them. Then they take this power and they turn around and stab us in the back. So the countries that are friendly to us need to remain friendly to us. And we need to help that reality be realized. It's one of the things that Donald Trump is the best at. It's why so many politicians picked up the sort of Donald Trump style of campaigning and politicking and governing. And this is how Javier Milei in Argentina won his election to begin with, and just won again earlier this week. Eric Doherty writes, holy smokes, right-wing populist Javier Milei won so big in Argentina that his party surged its parliament deputies by 172%, from 37 to 101. And this is an old count because it's actually more than that, I think. Or no, it's two less. Anyway, and increased senators by 233%, from 6 to 20. This is huge. He has defied all media expectations by far. So I did a little digging into this story. And I don't know if you want to think that the elections in Argentina are fraudulent. I mean, they certainly could be, although I can't really rationalize why they would be. In my estimation, these right-wing politicians are a danger to the globalist cabal, ushering in the New World Order. But I thought it was really interesting. All of the polls were wrong. The polls said Javier's government was going to lose. But not the betting markets. Why not the betting markets? Why did the betting markets have it nailed while the polls were dramatically wrong? I think you know where I'm going with this. Because the polls are pushed by the media, the leftist media in many cases. And the media exists to sway your opinion. And nobody talks, they want to talk about voter suppression. When Republicans in the US talk about voter ID and voting on paper. But have nothing to say when it comes to the polls are meant to make you stay home. But whenever the media releases a completely inaccurate poll, nobody talks about voter suppression. The betting markets, however, nailed it right on. Polymarket said Malay had a 99% chance. But the polls said that the Peronists had a 69% chance of winning to Malay's 41%. Why? To make the Malay supporters feel like they had already lost. No point in showing up. 69% chance of losing for us. The betting odds come out on top again. And so often, and this is why alternative media relies on Polymarket betting odds and Kalshi to tell you what's actually going on. Because polls are a lie. But not the betting odds. Speaking of betting, you may have heard about the scandal in the NBA. I was not surprised. We kind of dig into it. We're talking about baseball. My opinion on professional sports is basically the same as high-level politics. There's way too much money involved for the people in control to let these things go to chance. I asked Grok to give me a rundown on what exactly is happening with the NBA betting scandal. He writes, in October 2025, federal authorities arrested 34 individuals, including current and former NBA players and coaches, in connection with two intertwined schemes: an insider sports betting operation and mafia-run rigged poker games. The sports betting case involved sharing non-public information to place bets on at least 7 NBA games from March 2023 to March 2024, with players allegedly sitting out to manipulate outcomes and hit, quote, under prop bets, affecting teams like the Charlotte Hornets, Los Angeles Lakers, Portland Trail Blazers, Orlando Magic, and Toronto Raptors. Key figures include Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier, arrested for providing insider info on his own participation. Portland Trail Blazers coach Chauncey Billups, charged mainly in the poker scheme, but potentially linked to betting. Why wouldn't it be both? And former player slash assistant coach Damon Jones, involved in both, including sharing info on player absences like LeBron James in a 2023 game. The poker operation, active since at least 2019, used hidden cameras, marked cards, and other tech to defraud victims of over $7 million, with Billups and Jones allegedly participating in rigged sessions. Rozier and Billups were placed on leave, and the NBA emphasized game integrity, while the NBPA, that's the Players Association, stressed due process. This probe stems from the 2024 scandal involving former Toronto Raptors center Jonte Porter, who was banned for life by the NBA after manipulating his performance in 2 games to benefit prop bets placed by associates, with overlapping conspirators linking the cases. Additionally, Detroit Pistons player Malik Beasley was investigated this year for federal gambling ties, but cleared of charges. I'm sure that trial was all on the up and up. The scandals have prompted Senate inquiries into the league's handling of gambling issues. Are we big surprised? Is it a coincidence that the finals, the championship games happen to be in the largest markets in the country every year? Not every year. I did actually look into this, and my opinions, my theories were a little bit damaged, because it isn't just the biggest team in LA and the biggest team in New England every year, but often it's the teams with the biggest followings, the biggest superstars. Because Aside from the players and their shenanigans and the mob ties, the league wants its advertising dollars. And the teams from the biggest markets offer the most value to the big corporate advertisers. So the league out the gates wants the most popular teams to be in the most watched games because it equals more money. And it becomes just like elections. The richest people that have the most to lose often become the ones with the most power because they can finance the most successful campaigns. And I've heard it said that this is how money is laundered, and even how politicians are bribed when it comes to things like these card games. A politician stands to win a lot of money, and so their allies will gladly lose thousands of dollars to them in poker games or sports betting. Because you can do as J.B. Pritzker did and report that you just earned $1.4 million worth of your income for the year by being lucky at cards. And I've heard there's a lot of casinos in Washington, D.C. Let me ask. I want Grok to tell me how many casinos or gaming institutions are there in the DC area? Oh, I forgot to ask it to be brief. Maybe if I just hit quick answer, it'll tell me. It's thinking hard about it. In a 50-mile radius, oh, for crying out loud, just give me a number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10. Probably more. Lots of places. Lots of places for politicians to engage in bribery. And you know, some of the what would you call it? Demographic. We'll call it some of the most enthusiastic demographics for gambling are Asian folks, Chinese folks. So it's no surprise to see a bunch of Asians gambling in these gaming institutions. How easy would it be for the CCP to bribe our politicians by just playing some dumb hands of Texas Hold'em? Oh no, I just lost $1 million to you, Mitch McConnell. Don't retire. Don't retire yet. I just paid you $1 million for a little CCP-friendly legislation. And if you don't follow through, well, your wife's family owns major shipping companies in China that we could just dissolve because we're the CCP. True story. Mitch McConnell's wife has family in China that owns massive shipping companies. That must be why he votes with people like Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski, Rand Paul, when it comes to ending Trump's tariff power. Who is that good for? Who is that good for long term? Is it good for the United States? Is it good? Is that the libertarian position? We want to let corporations ship all the good paying American jobs overseas. So all we have left are third world wages in this country. Oh, it'd be great if people did the benevolent thing, did the fair thing, actually thought more than one quarter at a time about how their business could benefit the public and the country that it works in. But no, we don't. No, we want no borders. We want no trade agreements. Just let the corporations plunder the country. It's a great idea. And then let, of course, all the migrants in to make sure that the corporations have lots of $5 an hour labor for the ones that feel like they need to skirt the tariffs. I mean, do you see the picture? Trump comes in and puts the tariffs on in his first term. Biden comes in and opens up the borders so that all of these companies can maintain their cheap labor in the country using Venezuelans and Guatemalans. Here's an interesting story along the same lines. You know how I roll. It just popped into my feed. And I think it provides a little bit of insight into how the downfall of the country and of the West in reality, because this isn't a story about the United States. The headline from Breitbart reads, Chinese Communist Party making millions in UK government contracts for migrant hotels. How can that be? Oh, because the CCP says we will gladly accept your taxpayers' money to finance migrants staying in our hotels. We'll even cut you a deal. Because when your system is completely overwhelmed and you're on the brink of chaos, well, we'll come in and cut a bad deal. Oh, it'll be great for us, but it'll be bad for you. And it'll be bad for your citizens. It's the long game. And China can play the long game because they're a communist country. How long has she been the president of China? I gotta know. A long time. 20 years? 15 years? How long has she been president of China? Tell me quick. 12 years. And he's marching to the beat of the CCP drum. The CCP will endure even when Xi Jinping is gone. So they can afford to play these long games. We'll manipulate NGOs. We'll finance stolen elections. We can wait 4, 8, 10, 12 years. Because the CCP marches in lockstep toward world domination. From the article, a report from the Interparliamentary Alliance on China, IPAC, has found that the Chinese Communist Party is directly profiting from Britain's migrant hotel scheme to house supposed asylum seekers, many of whom break into the country illegally via the English Channel from the beaches of France. And France couldn't be more excited to get rid of them. According to the IPAC audit of the Sino-British economic relationship, the CCP, or entities and people under its control, currently hold $190 billion in UK assets, including schools, national infrastructure such as Heathrow Airport, wind farms, power networks, billions of shares in FTSE listed companies, and properties, including migrant hotels. Among the Chinese-owned assets listed in the report include 3 migrant hotels in Britain that have collectively been awarded millions in home office contracts, the Sunday Times reported. Britain, you are paying China to house migrants in your cities that commit horrific atrocities, allegedly. That's what's happening in the UK. Do you think it's not happening here? What's the likelihood? And everyone's complicit. The Democrats are actively engaged in the subversion of the United States citizens. And the Republicans just look the other way. And with infighting, and it's because, with the exception of maybe a dozen, they're all being financed by the same interests. Finally, this question came to mind when I saw this post. Maybe this story is a little dark to be going out on, but it's what we're doing. Gnosis Wolf on X shared this post, and it got me thinking. He writes, "Are you noticing yet? Why don't Christian Democrats notice?" And he shares this screen grab from thedailymail.com with the headline, "Fury as primary school scraps Easter service to, quote, respect other religions in a move branded disgraceful." Are there no Christian Democrats? I would wager that there are very few, and probably even fewer. Because this question came to mind. Can you be a Democrat and also be a Christian? What's your initial thought out the gate? Well, sure. Sure, you can be a Democrat and be a Christian. You'd be a stupid Democrat Christian, but you still could. But I had to ask. And I asked Grok, which tenets of traditional Christianity are in direct conflict with the policies of modern day Democrats? Of course, we can think the most immediate one that comes to mind is abortion, right? It's the first one listed. Sanctity of life from contraception. Biblical views, Psalm 139, for example, see abortion as ending innocent life. Marriage as between one man and one woman, based on Genesis 2:24. Democrats advocate for same-sex marriage equality. Binary gender creation. God created male and female, Genesis 1:27. Democrats support transgender rights and gender-affirming care. Economic redistribution as potential theft or disincentive to work should be a Christian tenet. Commandments against theft, an emphasis on personal responsibility, as written in Exodus 20:15 and 2 Thessalonians 3:10. Democrats favor progressive taxation and social welfare programs against traditional Christianity. It ended there, but I had to ask him to list a few more. National borders, this is where it gets really interesting. National borders and immigration. Biblical emphasis on sovereign nations with protective borders and lawful governance. Nehemiah 2:17 through 20, Romans 13:1 through 7. Democrats advocate for more open immigration and pathways to citizenship for undocumented individuals. On the topic of gun ownership and self-defense, teachings on protecting life and resisting evil, Luke 22:36. Democrats support stricter gun control measures to reduce violence. It's unchristian. On environmental policies and prioritizing creation over human needs, Genesis 1:28 calls for stewardship of the earth, but not at the expense of human flourishing. Democrats push initiatives like the Green New Deal, seen by some as overemphasizing climate over immediate human concerns like poverty. and racial equality, equity. Things like critical race theory, prohibition against partiality or judging by appearance is in the Bible, James 2, 1 through 9. But Democrats promote DEI and anti-racism frameworks, critiqued as dividing people by identity rather than individual sins. So what can be done about all of the churches that have embraced these policies with their rainbow flags? What are we meant to do with that? And what does God make of the Christians that are supporting these things? Do they know? Are they aware? This is all part of the media lies that we're attempting to push back on with this show. So I thank you very much for joining me on this Sunday. I almost messed up the intro music. Did you catch that? Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. But thank you again very much for joining me. I sincerely appreciate it. We are live again next Sunday at 11 a.m., give or take a minute or two, depending on how frazzled I am at that particular moment. But please do me a favor right now. Hit subscribe on whichever platform you are enjoying this podcast. Leave me a review. Give me 5 stars. Give me a like and smash that like button. Leave me a comment. Boost my visibility. I need it. I appreciate it. Send me an email, therealearthvox@protonmail.com. And leave me a voicemail if you would be so kind and brave and generous with your time. At 701-787-1121. I'll be back.